Welcome everybody, welcome back to a new teaching from the Sovereign Way in the season of beauty, lightness and allowing. My name is Elizabeth and I am your host. Today we're dealing with overwhelm. We're dealing with that sensation of overwhelm as we're moving into a season of expansion. We're going into new times of turbulence and uncertainty, both in that big world stage and also in our own intimate and personal lives. So we can all do with having our own buoyancy device to within reach when we feel like we're about to go under, so that when we do have that sensation of overwhelm, we can reach for this one buoyancy device to help us lift up above the crashing surf and become one with the flow. So imagine, if you will, a buoyancy device for your mind, for your emotions and for your spirit. And it's not just a single person buoyancy device either, not just so you can stay afloat, but so that you can extend that life raft to others. Because truthfully, I don't know anybody who thinks only of herself. In fact, usually when my students ask for help with overwhelm, it's because they want to be better for the ones that they love, the ones that they serve. After all, you are a leader in your field. And so there's a longing within you to help others lift up also. And you can't do that when you're treading water. So I'm going to give you a mindset protocol today, one that's going to help to diffuse the weight and the size of what you're dealing with. Because I promise you, no matter how overwhelmed you feel, if you are dealing with this now, it's because you can handle it. I love this quote by Oliver Wendell Holmes. He's one of my favorite philosophers. He says, "When a resolute young man steps up to that great bully, the world, and takes it boldly by the beard, he's generally surprised to find that it comes off in his hand and that it was only tied on to begin with to scare away the timid adventurers." Now, especially for an ascending master like you who have chosen a path of conscious enlightenment, you are always in spiritual growth. You are always crossing thresholds into higher and brighter realities. And as you approach the edge of your comfort zone, resistance is triggered in that animal of you. It goes, danger zone ahead. So as you stand at the threshold of the greatest upgrade of your life and you're feeling overwhelmed, remember this: what's in the way is the way. In fact, type that in the comments now, wherever you're watching. What's in the way is the way. And the right action for you now is to lean through the resistance. So how do you do it? How do you expand beyond your comfort zone, especially if you're exhausted? I'm going to give you the hero's 5-step protocol from the Sovereign Way. This is the buoyancy device that helps you go from treading water to floating free. Overwhelm is the feeling that what's coming at me is bigger or faster than I can handle. It's like standing in the river, unable to keep footing with the increasing current. And so you feel afraid that you might go under and you might drown. And then in that state of mind, the slightest little thing like spilled milk becomes a terror. And as crazy as this sounds, this is actually a sign of your love. You feel this way because you care. Now, what's genius about the hero's protocol is that it's simple to remember, it's easy to implement, and it's energetically aligned with what you need to accomplish. And when you've practiced it a few times, it sort of becomes embodied. It sort of lives in your bones and lands in your heart. And then you no longer have to consciously take these steps. When you meet challenges, you simply start to flow through the protocol. And this has saved my family in the darkest times of despair. So learn this protocol and practice it well if you're about to take on a big mission, like a body reboot, or a reconciliation with an estranged family member, or a change of career, or if you're helping someone transition, or you're launching a big new personal project, or maybe you're just leaning into a whole new way of being a sovereign human in an apocalyptic age. Because you know what? There's always going to be some challenge ahead. That's part of the deal. But you deserve to be the superhero when that time comes. This is Corinthians 4:8-9. We are pressed on every side by troubles, but we are not crushed. We are perplexed, but not driven to despair. We are hunted down, but never abandoned by God. We get knocked down, but we are not destroyed. The natural way of the cosmos, you see, is forever more expansion. And that means pushing against the boundaries of what is. And the resistance that you feel when you feel overwhelmed by whatever it is that's in front of you is just an indication that you've met the edge of what's known for you. And you're moving into wider, deeper, and more expansive versions of your own life. It does not mean that you're doing something wrong, or you're missing the path, or you're not healthy, or spiritual, or worthy. You know, my students are some of the most powerful people on our planet, and they get scared too. Difficulty is sacred. And we don't get to judge what level of hardship someone else is experiencing, because we only get to see so many small number of energetic data points to make our minds up. Which means that we cannot judge our own hardship as not being enough to warrant the feeling of overwhelm. And we mustn't judge ourselves for feeling like it's all too much. So, my love, my first invitation to you now is to stop judging yourself. You're not supposed to always be a badass. And you can only be there for someone else in their trouble if you've truly been there for yourself in your trouble. You can't measure whose life is more noble than Princess Diana, the epitome of privilege, or an unnamed little boy running for his life in some back alley in Uganda, because there is no difference between these two. Both those humans are the spearheads of a hero soul that is meeting a flow of life the best way it knows how. Stories are being told and shared, woven together in community. But no matter how well we think we know someone, anyone, the depth of another's life is a mystery. And the depth of your life is a mystery. And you mustn't feel lonely that others can't understand. So whose hardship is the hardest discussions are never fruitful, because there isn't an answer. Here's Romans 5:3-5. We glory in tribulations, knowing that tribulation produces perseverance, and perseverance, character, and character, hope. Now, hope does not disappoint, because the love of God has been poured out in our hearts by the Holy Spirit who was given to us. So this protocol that I'm going to teach you today will come in handy as you grow into the marvel that you are becoming by the decree of the Holy Spirit who placed you in this hardship. So these 5 easy but important steps will bring you along that simple but profound mindset protocol that lifts you up from the crushing waves and has you surfing on the tide. Ready? Ready? Nodding heads. Good. Good, good, good. Now, each step is a state of mind. So you embody one step before you move on to the next. And this provides a logical, orderly elevation of your awareness so that you maintain the right mind, the right action, and the right vibrational state to allow the situation to flow and keep your capacity to master the situation. So in this way, there is no challenge that is greater than you can handle. And then with grace and ease, you will be able to manage what's coming, and you will come out the other side of the season with greater sovereignty. Because that's what expansion is all about, a deepening dance with the lover of life. So 5 steps. Step 1. Can you all please make sure you're on mute, my loves? Thank you. Step 1, 5 steps. Step 1, surrender. Oh, that sounds nice and easy, doesn't it? But let's everyone's shaking their heads. No. Step 1 is surrender. Now imagine that the flow of life is a river, and that overwhelm is the feeling of having your feet stuck in the mud while the current is increasing. But remember this, you do know where the flow is coming from, and you do know where the flow is going, because the flow is life. It is the great unknown. So really, the greatest gift is to surf on the tide of life, but for that you need to let go of the riverbanks, the structures and the stage, and the control of all the things, the algorithms, the outlines, the vision boards. In the Oasis tomorrow, in group, I'm going to give you an energy technique that will help you let go. Because it's not actually a hard concept for the human mind to comprehend that all things in the universe are intrinsically interconnected. Right? We get that every vibrating subatomic particle making up the fabric of reality is entangled with every other part. We're sovereign, right? We're awakened. We've chosen to agree with that. And we get that if all things are energy and all energy moves and transfers, then a seemingly isolated incident on this planet in my life is completely affected by something happening on the other side of the galaxy. Like the way a pebble is tossed in one side of the lake and it ripples until it changes the movement of a lily pad near the other shore. There's incredible order in the chaos, and our manifestations are energy fields dancing in rivers of movement between all people, all times, and all places in the unified field of creation. It's Matthew 21. Peter came to Jesus and asked, Lord, how many times shall I forgive my brother or sister who sins against me? 7? Is 7 enough? And Jesus said, I tell you not 7 times, but 77 times. Now that is, of course, a mystical figure which symbolizes an infinite amount, because continually there are influences in your experience that feel against you. 70 times 7 pebbles and 70 times 7 lily pads in an infinitely vast pond. An infinite amount of interference in your life, and you, for all the healing and mastery work that you've done, will never control it. We understand this, and yet when we confront a challenge in our life, we have a habit of looking at it in isolation. Here it is, a separate thing, an anomaly that is happening, and we diagnose it, and we give it a reason for existing, and we call it bad. And that justifies us resisting it. And then we use our clever brains to think of all the reasons why it shouldn't be so, and all the ways that we could fix it, and all the terrible things that might happen if we don't. That's all conjecture. But surrender is the art. It's an art and a craft. It's an art and a craft of accepting this as truth in the moment. I am standing in front of the hardest challenge of my life, and I don't actually know what this is. I don't have the perspective. that shows me all those interconnected streams of cause and effect, and I couldn't possibly comprehend the meaning of it. I don't know what this is for. I don't know what medicine is hidden inside of it. I don't know the highest and best outcome for all involved. It is what it is, and here I am. And there's another aspect to surrender, the white flag. Because, my love, it is also time for you to stop fighting some of those battles that you're fighting. You're not going to win. You're not meant to. They've already been won. Some of the dragons in your life don't need to be slayed. They can be allowed, or maybe tamed, or even befriended. But fighting them, you will waste all your energy on trying to change something that doesn't need your intervention. So I invite you, what battle can you surrender? What enemy could become a peaceful neighbor? You may find that it moves away on its own over time. This is James chapter 1, verses 2 to 4. Count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds, for you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. And let steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. So step 1 is surrender, and step 2 is ground. You know, when you put surrender and ground together, you get an elegant landing, like a ballerina. I've let go and I'm grounded. I've landed. So when you've surrendered, you've allowed the fact that this difficulty is your experience here and now, and you cannot fix it nor deny it, nor can you fully define it, or rely on your limited perspective to know the whole truth about it. So you've let go of the riverbanks and you've let the current take you. Now you need to be able to orient yourself with the flow. You need to know where you are compared to where it's going. This is what grounding does for you. Now, grounding really has to do with entering the world as fully and completely in your awareness as possible. The term "be here now" is a statement of perfect grounding, not lost in streams of thought, not tossed about on the waves of emotional energy, neither in the past nor in the future, and certainly no other geographical location. Now your focus and energy is not out there in the spheres of concept and probability, but right here in life, because life is what is expanding for you. Now, it is true that we are eternal beings in a field of infinite energetic potential, but for now, we're also just people. And that means that we're operating within a structure that is subject to the laws of cause and effect. We're not designed to just magic our problems away. That's not real magic. We are designed to use our highest faculties, our most loyal tools, and to connect with each other, to create opportunities out of challenges, and to contribute to the expansion of all that is by exploring what isn't already. That's where the real magic lies. So step 2 in the protocol is ground, and we do that with the great audit. So type that in so you remember it, the great audit. So we're going from I know nothing to what do I know? What is occurring? What is the true environment here? What are the risks? What are the opportunities? Where are my tools? What's in my bank account? What's in my storage unit? What's in my garage? What books on my shelf that I haven't tapped into? What's my expertise? What are the contacts in my phone book? What friends and experts can I call on? What spiritual gifts can I use? What metaphysical tools can I use? Here's Proverbs 15:22. Without consultation and wise advice, plans are broken, but with many counselors, they are established and succeed. So really lay out the true landscape of where you are. That's the great audit. I've had students fill entire notebooks and go, wow, I had no idea I was this vast, this equipped, this ready. The great audit changes your perspective from the 1% of brokenness to the 99% of awesomeness. Think here about David and Goliath. Everybody tried to conquer this enormous, vast, otherworldly challenge using culturally approved traditional methods of offense tactics, and they all perished. But little tiny David stopped to know himself and know his tools. And instead of charging ahead, using that same force and muscle that everyone else was using, he used what he had from where he was. And he won. And he became king, sovereign. So you need to know the landscape. You need to know the opponents. You need to know who you are, where you are, and what you have at your disposal before you can properly orient yourself. So that's grounding. Here's Philippians 4:6-9. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition and with thanksgiving, present your needs to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. And finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, lovely, admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about these things. Whatever you have learned or received or heard from me or seen in me, put into practice, and the God of peace will be with you. So step 1 is surrender. Step 2 is ground. And step 3 is power up. Now you lift yourself up, you power up, you get on top of the surf. And you do this energetically, mentally, and physically. So we think of one's state of being as a set of coordinates of thought and feeling and behavior. And we understand that life reflects our state of being. And that means if we want to experience more, like more energy, more rest, more healing, more peace, more opportunity, more abundance, more adventure, more knowing, then we need to have the ability to expand our capacity. Because anything outside our capacity, even though it exists, will not be known by us. So to hold more, we need greater mental space, greater space for feeling love, greater resourcefulness for acting in love for the greatest good, and greater space to appreciate the glorious returns of a more successful state of being. Now you can see why system and sequence are important, right? That's ontology. Ontology is the logical and organized sequence of becoming. Because if you try to power up before you've surrendered, then you're rising up against an imaginary enemy. What a waste of energy. And if you power up before you've grounded, then you don't know what's already at your disposal and you're powering up the wrong thing. You're getting the lawnmower all revved up to process the paperwork. That's how I do paperwork. No, it's not. It might have been in the past. But listen, there is a reason why you're here. You are unique. You bring something to the challenge that no one else could. You have a very particular combination of skills and attributes and experiences and tools. And these were all revealed to you in the Great Audit exercise. And together, these all alchemize into your superpower. This is 1 Peter 4:10. God has given each of you a gift from his great variety of spiritual gifts. Use them well to serve one another. And your superpower is fundamentally linked to your life path. There is order in the chaos. And if you've arrived at this point and you're faced with this challenge, you can be sure that you are the one for the job. And your superpower is the secret to moving through it with grace. Moreover, this challenge that you're facing is the current secret to practicing your mastery and your superpower as the hero of your life and becoming more skilled at using it. You know, when Spider-Man finds himself in a spot of trouble, he doesn't use lobster force, does he? He doesn't do that. He doesn't look to the city culture to find out what's the most commonly used animal attribute. He knows what to do because his unique power is innate. And the more he practices his little cobwebby things, the more easily he can take on what life brings. Spider-Man does Spider-Man because that's who he is. And you know who you are. Believe. This is Matthew 17:20. I tell you the truth. If you had faith even as small as a mustard seed, you could say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it would move. Nothing would be impossible. So step 1 is surrender. Step 2 is ground. Step 3 is power up. And by the way, tomorrow in group, I'm going to show you an energy technique from Qigong that releases and activates dormant qi in your body. So you have already got stores of energy that you're not using, and I'm going to show you how to release that. That's tomorrow in group. So step 3 is power up. Step 4 is act. Now you act. Now you maneuver the surfboard. You don't want to go on trying to take on the great waves of the blue sea until you're on top, because otherwise it feels like you're taking on all the battles and carrying the whole weight of the world crashing down. No, you get on top and now you act. Now you move forward into the challenge that lies ahead. So you wait to make a decision and act on it until you've arrived into alignment and called on all power available to you into your experience. Now you can trust that whatever choice you make on where to place your next step is absolutely the right one. Because there isn't a right path on this journey into deeper love for life, is there? It's not about what you do, it's about who you are when you take the action. I'll say that again. It's not about which choice you make, it's about who you are when you're making that choice. In fact, type that in the comments wherever you are watching this. It's not what, it's who. That's the key to success. So when we act, it's not from the perspective of which of these happenings in the 3D world must I initiate first, and what's the correct sequence of happenings that must occur for me to successfully accomplish this challenge. It's not linear decision making like that. This isn't Gantt chart living. Evolving life is actually an unlikely ripple effect of action and spontaneous response to opportunities presented. Now, planning is important, sure, because it frames your intention and it focuses your movements, but it's equally important to release the plan when it's time to take a step sideways. Have you ever procrastinated? I'm asking the question, but I know the answer. Have you ever procrastinated from doing the right next thing because you've gone, oh, but then I'd have to have a website and then I'd have to have brochures printed and my father's got the keys and they haven't passed that policy in Congress yet. And then you let your awareness slide down an imaginary line of possible outcomes and the cause and effect ripple that might follow. Have you ever procrastinated because of all the imaginary things that might or might not happen? Yeah. And that's all nonsense because none of that is real. It's all irrelevant conjecture. Knowing right action in the moment comes with having accepted the challenge as it is and not trying to deny or fix it, as well as grounding into what the challenge is in the moment, gathering the tools that are available to you and bringing all of your highest power to the point of action. Now I will go and make a cup of tea. Now I will decide whether to stay or go, or leave or stay. Now I raise my prices and launch the program. Now I cancel the program and go a different way. You're not committing ever to a whole linear sequence of tasks. So don't fear making the wrong move. You focus on nothing but what is before you to do. And then your imperfect attention and your clumsy but well-meaning action becomes the very service that liberates the collective consciousness. As long as your intention is right and your perspective is sovereign, when you act, you are simply initiating a rollout of materialization. Remember, spirit as the second node of creation in that trinity. Spirit is the innate power of love. Movement is the second principle of God. This is Philippians 4:13. All things I can do in Christ who strengthens me. This is more important than ever for people to remember. Because what seems to be opposing actions, like voting Republican or voting Democrat, they are actually conjoined actions in a tapestry of progressive improvement. It's the intention and energy behind the action that matters. So as long as our collective intention is for more love and more balance and more justice, then the circumstances will rearrange to allow process. And in the material world, in the material universe, process means time. So we don't see our desired results immediately. We must trust. Here's Matthew 6:33. Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and then all things are added to you. So now you don't need to escape the process of order, disorder, and reorder because there's no suffering in it. Now you don't need to fear chaos because you see divine order through it. Now you don't need to brace yourself for the rhythm of compression and expansion because compression no longer feels bone crushing, but as a suspended poise, that weightlessness before the exhale. Well, here's Romans 8:37. Nothing in the universe has the power to diminish his love for us. Troubles, pressures, problems are unable to come between us and heaven's love. What about persecutions, deprivations, dangers, and death threats? Even in the midst of all these things, we triumph over them all. For God has made us to be more than conquerors, and his demonstrated love is our glorious victory over everything. So step 1 is surrender. Step 2 is ground. Step 3 is power up. Step 4 is act. And step 5, maybe the hardest of them all, is allow. So as we come full circle in the protocol, the final step, allow whatever comes next. This can be a phenomenally hard thing to do because our first impulse is to control the outcome, or at least have an investment in what we think the outcome should be. But if we are to accept the mission in front of us, we must appreciate that if we have surrendered to the knowing that we don't know what the challenge in reality is in its totality, then we must also accept that we don't know what should happen. We may have desires. We're allowed to have desires. We may have perfectly crafted vision boards and post-it notes with affirmations of our ideals stuck to the mirror, but it's simply outside of our consciousness to know what we will know about what we want when we've become more of who we are becoming. With every step up that mountain, the view changes a little and new ideals come into view. It's then very good not to be too attached to your current foothold. Now, the grand plan for our lives is so much more vast than we can imagine. And I know the think big movement is full of good and truth. It is good to think big, but in my experience, to think simple is to allow big, because then there's no attachment to what big really is. And then the awe of what comes next never ceases. And that means committing only to this present moment and allowing life to flow into you and through your experience. And if you follow the protocol, then you know that the challenge here now is the perfect one for you at this time. What's in the way is the way. And then you are completely present in the experience, and you are grounded in your position as sovereign within it. And you've dialed up the amount of divine power that you receive and radiate. So you know the action you've taken is the right step. So what follows must be the highest and best, regardless of what it looks like. So let the serve take you, and know and trust that you are held buoyant by life herself, that there is support for you, and there are ones who can help take some of the weight off your shoulders, and then allow that feeling of surfing. And this is indeed a craft. One of the very last teachings in the Bible is Revelation 22:17. The Spirit and the bride say, "Come." Let everyone who hears answer, "Come." Let all who are thirsty come. All who want it may have the water of life and have it for free. Allowing that buoyancy in life is the hardest part. Sometimes we want to sink to the bottom. We want to hold on to the riverbanks. We want the current to stop before we make the next move. We just want someone to turn the tap off for a moment. But allowing there to be that frequency of grace around us at all times to help lighten the yoke, allowing ourselves to adjust our mindset, to know that we are capable, allowing our friends and our community experts to help when we need it, that's hard. But deliverance is free. Salvation is free. And Jesus Christ is alive, and it is his greatest joy to take your burdens and lift you up. And there is raw painful difficulty too. In your awakened life, with your enlightened consciousness, life is your lover, and he brings difficulties to the table. Some of those difficulties are small, like a quarrel with your spouse over who should do the dishes. And some are big, like finding your purpose in a very troubled world. Some difficulties are physical, like the pains and growths in your body machinery. And others are spiritual, like the endless search for identity or feeling the aching retreat into a season of darkness. Surrender. Ground, power up, act, and then allow. That's the hero's protocol, and it is soaked with mercy and mastery. And you, my dear, as an ascending master, as a sovereign one on the enlightened life, you are allowed both mastery and mercy. So I want to hear from you. Please type in wherever you are, which of these steps is the hardest for you and which one is the easiest? And know from now on that the experience of dealing with difficulty is a sacred ingredient in living a rich life. Now that you are awakened, there's no victimhood, only victory. No suffering, only sovereignty, whatever the outcome. And from now on, you no longer believe that challenges can overwhelm you. And you'll always have the life jacket to help the feeling of overwhelm. And you no longer believe that overwhelm is a sign that you're not capable or that you haven't done it right. You no longer believe you can be beaten. Thank you all very much for coming today. Thank you for receiving. I hope that you've typed in all the little bits and pieces I've asked you to type, because that's how we participate. Your participation and your engagement is a spiritual marriage with your intention. It is an alchemy that creates magic and elevates possibility for you. Tomorrow in group, I'm going to give you the energy techniques I promised you in this teaching today. We're going to learn the techniques for surrendering, for physically and metaphysically letting go. We're also going to go through the great audit and make sure we know what to check off the list. And I'm going to show you a technique for powering up, releasing dormant chi in your body so that you have more life force and more energy with which to face the challenges of life. So thank you everybody for coming. Now I will turn off the live stream and we'll open in the oasis for communion and prayer.